been a while since I've been in front of the camera, so I think it was time to go ahead and record another one of these vlogged style videos. So February updates, or I guess January updates and February plans maybe is the better way to phrase this. So my YouTube channel hit 100 subscribers, or over 100 subscribers recently. So thank you everyone who subscribes. It was one of the small milestones that I wanted to reach, mainly because for those of you who have YouTube channels, I wanted selfishly a vanity URL so that whenever I shared the link to my channel, it would be actually the name of my channel, which is Halcyon Straits, versus a string of alphanumeric characters. And YouTube, I don't know when they implemented this, only lets you have that privilege, that right, or whatever, when you hit 100 subscribers. So I was able to hit 100 subscribers last month, so thank you everyone for subscribing and allowing me to have this one milestone. There are, I think, other milestones that YouTube offers, of course, you know, like monetization, and then like I'm never going to get to the point where I have millions of subscribers in those plaques or whatever special events that they have. Like, that's not a goal of mine. I'd be very, very surprised if I ever ended up there, because I'm not going to be putting that kind of effort into it. But grateful for the folks who have joined me here, and that was a highlight of January. As for doll-related highlights, I did purchase one doll in 2022 so far, and that was an in-stock doll from a small artist. I think the doll line is called Draugr Dolls. I'm not very good at pronouncing names. It's by an artist named Tatterpunk Jendi. At least that's her Instagram handle. I think I just call her Jendi whenever I get a chance to talk with her. And it is the Hana Sculpt, and I have her right here. Beautifully sculpted, very, I don't know, the silhouette of the face is so distinct. I don't know. It's interesting, like the way the light falls off of her face. And you can see kind of the profile view right here. Anyway, gorgeous doll. Inside the head cap, there's this like cute resin, and I'm going to guess gold foil or some sort of gold leaf imprint of the doll, and then Hana, the name of the sculpt, is inscribed into the inside of the head. And if you couldn't tell, this was a 3D printed doll, and it's actually a very interesting material. It has this nice heft and texture to it that I haven't seen with other 3D printed resin, but again, my only point of reference is Frapzilla Blooms, so I might just be uninformed. Jendi mentioned that it's a mix of ABS-like properties as well as porcelain-like properties in the resin. Again, I don't know enough about 3D printing to know what resin mixes are available, and if you can create that kind of chemistry concoction that gives you various properties that casted resin may not even have. So I think that's an interesting space to watch. Again, 3D printing in resin is something that I'm curious to at some point do in the future, but still waiting for the technology to mature a little bit more, mainly because of hazards and safety, and I don't have the room for it. But anyway, kudos to all of you out there who are able to work around this material and produce something amazing like that. So that's one doll update. Oh, another thing that happened in January that not due to anything I did, but last year I had grand plans of purchasing the Rites of Passage series from Rugged Realism. Helene is, I believe, the sculptor based out of Australia. So her masters got destroyed, sending it over to China to get casted because of extreme heat. And it was just heartbreaking to see that happen. And it was so surprising. I think the first week or second week of January, she posted that she was actually able to get them casted again. So like she went offline for 4 months or something, and I didn't see anything, and I'm not in any other channels which she is in. I just follow her on Instagram, and when I saw that post, I was super excited. So if there is a pre-order this year for the Rites of Passage series, I will do my darndest to try to get on that and get one of those boys home. So that will be my one doll purchase that is for sure planned in 2022 if that pre-order happens. I know it's still early in the year, so we shall see. And then other than that, I didn't really do much doll stuff in January, mainly because work has picked up more and life has been busy. I do hope to be able to paint Hana myself at some point in the future, mainly because since it is a 3D printed doll, I don't know if the face-up artists that I have traditionally gone with will be able to paint this material. Again, I don't know enough about it, but it is the doll or the face-up artist's right to be able to accept or reject any commissions. I mean, we're asking their labor, their work. So anyway, that's something I think would be fun for me to just try and experiment myself, and we'll see how far it goes. I've already sealed the doll. I just need a good day to actually be able to paint it and do layers. Right now, Texas is in the middle of its ice storm, so it's a bit cold outside. It's below freezing, so it's cold outside. That said, I haven't lost power yet this year, so I'm very grateful for that. In other news, one thing that I did want to share with you is I have come across this site before. So I think back in the summer of 2020, I was trying to look for patterns for some of my dolls or just be able to modify some sewing patterns. And I came across this site called Fearless Makers. And it's an interesting site because it can generate patterns based on measurement. So if you take the effort to go and measure your doll, it will generate patterns. At the time when I joined in 2020, it only had like 5 patterns. So it was just like, okay, there's a child pattern, there's a pattern for a body with breasts, and there's a pattern with a body without breasts, or torso without breasts. And then I think there might have been one pair of pants and then maybe one other thing. So it was very limited in what they had offered at the time. But I wanted to go through with it and see if it was like something that I might be able to leverage. And I ended up, I think, putting in all my measurements, and I didn't get farther than that because I was just thinking, I think couldn't get the fit to work, or I just wasn't experienced enough. And then over the winter, I was trying to figure out, like, can I make a pattern for the Dolce 16F body that I recently got? And surprisingly, there aren't very many patterns for this doll, or I just have a hard time searching for it. And it's built differently enough from the rest of my girls that they can't really share tops. So I went on a quest to see if I can find some patterns, and I think Sejong Studio has some, but they were more athletic and casual, and I was hoping to be able to create a nice form-fitted dress, maybe something 50s style. I haven't decided yet, but like I have this beautiful fabric that I want to use to create like this form-fitting dress with a beautiful like full skirt. But I don't think that any of the patterns that I was able to find meet my needs. So for some reason, I thought of this site again, Fearless Makers, and went on there and saw that they have a whole lot more garments that are available. So I went through the process of measuring my doll. There's like 80 some odd measurements that you need to do in order to be able to have a complete set. They have like, I think the basics, which can generate more rough patterns, but if you put in all of them, and I'm thinking like 80 measurements, like one of them is like the apex of the shoulder blades or something like that. I went through and did that. It took about 40 minutes to do all of that for one doll, and it's a pretty heavy investment in that regard. But once you have that in there, you can go through their collection of garments that are available. And again, there was 5 in the summer of 2020. There's now several different bodices to choose from, different types of sleeves, different types of collars and pants, and different cuts and fits. And it's grown quite a bit since I last looked at it. So I highly recommend you explore it. Again, they even have a section that is mostly dedicated to pattern drafting. Now, I don't have any pattern drafting skills. Like, I'm just learning the basics, and these are just slopers, basically. But yeah, I went ahead and measured, and I picked one of the bodices that were form-fitting to what I wanted to do, and it sewed up pretty nicely. I did want to highlight a few things that I found confusing that may, if you go ahead and go through this process, you may encounter. One thing was that when I was measuring, the order in which they took in the measurements, if you just go top to bottom, sometimes they were very unintuitive because you would be jumping around different parts of the body. And then when you're measuring the front versus the back of the body, it's had you measure the back first versus the front. And like when you're doing your bust, for example, it's like, I would think that getting the front measurement would be more important, or would be more intuitive to go first versus getting the back measurement. But anyway, that's a minor quibble, and maybe just like the way my brain works. So maybe it wouldn't bother most people. The second thing that was confusing that I think is far more important for you to be aware of is when you're generating the pattern after the fact, you have this option to have variables that you can adjust. So that's like, hey, I want seam allowances to be this amount, or I want so much ease for either the bust or the waist or the neck. What I didn't realize was that when you do seam allowances, the software actually scales for the height of the measurements. Of course, it's made for, or its target audience is humans, but it does let you put in doll measurements. And when it gets, I guess, a measurement below a certain height, it scales it down. So what I learned I had to do was, because my dolls are in the 1/3 scale, I had to scale my seam allowances up. So if I want a 1/4 inch seam allowance, which is what most, I think, US doll patterns have, I would have to make it the seam allowance 3/4 of an inch, so 3 times a 1/4 inch, in order for it to correctly print as a 1/4 inch seam allowance on this particular pattern. And so I imagine if you had a 1/4 scale doll, you would have to scale your seam allowance to a full inch. So there's a little bit room for play. It's not going to be perfect right out of the box. But that was one thing that I thought was pretty tricky that I wasn't aware of. And I think seam allowance is the only one that does scale. I added I think I read the FAQ afterwards. I was like, oh, okay, I figured out why my seam allowances aren't working right. And then I thought, and didn't read the FAQ closely, that ease is absolute. So like I put the scaled version of ease for like the armhole and for the bust, and I ended up with a way too big pattern. But anyway, even with all that, I was able to sew it together, and it came out pretty nicely, if I do say so myself. So this is not the doll shoe body, but this is my Ipple House new SID female body on the small bust. And overall, the fit is pretty nice. It actually, you could see the armhole is probably much too large. And to be fair, I didn't put the seam allowance in the armhole, so this is where it would fall, but I didn't cut out the seam allowance for the neck hole, so it's a little bit higher than where it would be if it were sewn to a collar. But anyway, I think like where it lands in terms of like the apex of the bust and the darts, the fit is actually really nice, and with the ease, I'm able to, have it be able to lean back without too much tightening. Of course, this is not sewn shut, so we don't know, but you know, I can lean forward, and I think it lays relatively flat. So this might be the right amount of ease once I do a little bit more configuring, but I was pretty happy with being able to sew this together. And what it means for me is I will be probably doing all of my girl dolls and some of my guy dolls, getting that all into this software so that I can generate some more patterns. And if I get brave enough, probably once I have the measurements, start fashioning my own patterns and garments, because, you know, I don't know, I'm still very much a novice, or I feel like a novice when it comes to sewing, because like, okay, yeah, I can take a pattern and instructions and construct the garment, but I'm not at the point where I can like, okay, I know how to manipulate darts and then know how to adjust things so that it can lay the way that I want. I'm not anywhere near that level, and I would love to get there at some point. But for now, I'm just like, if I am able to put in these measurements and get it to a really good starting point, then I can watch more YouTube videos or read more books and then figure out how to draft patterns that will be able to make the garments that I want to make for my dolls. So I have a few things that I want to sew for February. I also plan on purchasing patterns still, because like pants, I don't know if I want to try to draft my own, and each doll's like proportions are so different. I think I probably will sew some. I've been wanting to sew some white denim jeans for my doll, so I think that's what I'm going to try to do in February. Maybe some dresses if I can get that going, and hopefully I'll be able to document those and share with you all here. Anyway, hopefully your year is starting out pretty well and that you have some doll plans underway, and hope to hear from you and share out what you've been doing, and looking forward to continuing to add to my channel and talking with all of y'all. So have a good week, stay warm if you're affected by this ice storm, and I will see you next time. Bye.